The power we don't use. Ilha Bela is an archipelago on the north coast of the state of São Paulo, Brazil. It was there that an impressive story happened. Nadia, a 30-year-old woman who lived on the island, left home with that feeling that she shouldn't go out, that feeling that she should stay at home. But as it was a pleasant night, she wanted to have fun with friends, so she said a quick prayer as usual and left. For mysterious reasons, this night, the driver of the car fell asleep at the wheel. It was something unthinkable at that time. But when you are driving a vehicle, what seems simple can turn out to be something very serious. The car that Nadia was in crashed into a tree. The young woman who was in the passenger seat without a seat belt hit her head on the roof very hard, which caused her to fracture her spine. When she woke up, she realized that something very serious had happened. People around her said, "Nadia, wake up. You need to wake up." She felt a very strong pain in her back, and from that moment she began to cry and ask for God's intercession and help. After arriving at the hospital and carrying out several tests, it was found that there was an explosion of the L1 vertebra, with bone fragments stuck in the spinal cord and a fracture of the L3 vertebra, both in the lumbar spine. The doctors were honest and considered that Nadia would never walk again. She, like anyone else, refused to believe and accept that she would lose movement because despite the doctor's diagnosis, she claimed to be able to feel her feet. The tomography technician said that it was impossible for someone with a spinal cord in that condition to be feeling anything from the neck down, but for some reason, Nadia simply didn't want to accept living that way and never gave up. It was necessary to try to restore Nadia's spine, so she underwent her first high-risk surgery. After the 8-hour surgery, as if that delicate condition wasn't already too painful, Nadia unfortunately gets a serious infection. An antibiotic-resistant bacteria was in her blood, probably due to contamination from the accident site. Later, Nadia would discover that doctors had given her less than 24 hours to live. But the young woman was determined to live for many years. Even in the face of despair and tears from her family and friends, she seemed to become more and more confident in her recovery. It is as if every word and tear of the people around her were translated as ammunition of faith for her. Nadia, while recovering between one surgery and another, said countless prayers to God. At one point, Nadia feels as if her forehead has been touched, which she interprets as if something or someone is there with her to help her. And he increasingly felt that God had plans for his existence and that he would not be without the movements of his body, much less die in that place. Then Nadia experienced great peace and felt prepared to face whatever it was. The young woman who did not let herself be shaken repeated the same words tirelessly and said what is written in Philippians 4 verse 13. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me against everything and everyone." That same month, Nadia underwent 2 more high-risk surgeries and always came back with more and more faith as soon as she woke up. That's when an opportunity suddenly appeared, and she finds herself alone in a post-operative recovery room and then decides to do the unthinkable. Armed with anxiety to get away from that situation and covered in faith, Nadia simply counts backwards starting with the number 7. And as soon as she reaches number 1, Nadia, on impulse and a gesture of faith, manages to sit on the bed and slowly swing her legs over the side of the bed. As expected, she, very emotional, began to thank God and, in a loud voice, began to call out to someone passing by in the hallway. This act caught the attention of some nurses and a doctor. As they quickly entered the room, they soon came across a completely unusual scene. Before his eyes, Nadia was sitting on that hospital bed and crying with happiness. The doctors in turn laid her down again and asked for time until they could understand what was happening. Surprised, the young woman hears from one of the doctors who was taking care of her case, "I can only call this a miracle." For days later, to everyone's astonishment, Nadia, inexplicably, is found standing next to her bed. And once again she is placed in her bed by health professionals, because although something extraordinary was happening, the nurses thought it was a lack of responsibility and a high risk. Without saying that his recovery should be one of absolute rest, mainly due to the many surgeries he had undergone. After everything that happened, Nadia seemed to regenerate and recover at an astonishing speed, until the day comes to go home, for the honor and glory of the Lord, as she herself declared. Today Nadia is cured. That infection no longer existed in her body and, miraculously, today she walks perfectly and is in good health. Whenever she has the opportunity, she thanks God for her miracle in the form of stories to people, as she never stopped believing, even when the doctors had condemned her to paralysis and perhaps death. This is one of those lessons that we must absorb and learn from. We don't need to accept what people impose on us or the reality we are currently living. Faith is a gigantic power. Many people think they know how to take advantage of this gift, but the truth is that most people don't know how to use it to their advantage.